In this video, I'm going to show you how to animate a prop and then make that animated prop move along a path. So let's get on with it. To do this, I've got my St. George the Knight character set up here with his axe, and he's going to throw that axe and you'll see the axe spinning in the air as he throws it. I've got this on a loop, so I'll let it loop a couple of times so that you can see what's going on. So here we go. As you can see, he's throwing the axe and the axe is spinning in the air. Now, I realise the physics on this is probably not very accurate and the throw could be timed a little bit better, but I mainly wanted to set this up so that you could clearly see what was going on and that I wasn't going to have to get into too much detail just to demonstrate these concepts. So I'll stop that and we'll just go through it frame by frame a little bit just so you can see what's happening. You can see here we've got George leaning back to throw this axe. I haven't done any work on his facial expressions. He flies through the axe goes through, and you'll see the axe itself is turning in the air as it flies through off screen. That's what I'm going to be demonstrating, this axe moving along a path, but it's also spinning at the same time. And I'll show you how we put that together. So I'm going to start completely from scratch and just have my background. Delete the weapons. So we're starting from scratch. We've just got my scene set up here and that's pretty much it. So to get started, I'm going to put my George character into the scene. So we'll just search for him, and that's this one here. Put him in the scene. And while we're doing this, I'll turn the timeline off. That's my character George, and you'll notice he doesn't have an axe as a prop, anything like that. We'll put him in about there, and I'm going to right click and do remove object animation because I wasn't on the first frame of the scene when I moved him, but now I am. Now I'm going to go get his axe because we're going to need it in the scene. So this is his axe prop here. Bring it out and you'll notice that it's way bigger than what he is. The Z-axis is the same, and that's going to need to be resized down to 35 on the width and height. I'm going to lock that, just enter 35 on here. That brings it back to his scale. This axe is a prop that I made, and something that you'll notice on this axe in the sprite sheet is that I've got a sprite here that's got his hand already holding it. This particular axe was made especially for this character. That's going to be important later on, but for now, just be aware that's how I'm making him hold the actual axe. So the first part of this whole demonstration is to get that axe into George's hand so that when he throws it, it'll go behind his head and his hand will be in the right place and all those kinds of things. So to do that, we want to take him into the composer, and we're going to want to add his axe as an accessory. Go in here, search for his axe, bring it out and drag it onto the screen. We want to drag it over the bone that we want it to be attached to. You'll see the bone's turning green. That's indicating that's the bone that this will be attached to. I want it to be attached to the palm of his hand, so that's where I'm going to put it. And you'll notice again that's way too big. So what we're going to do is go into edit pose, turn that on, select the axe, and up here with the width and height again, I'm going to change that to 35. Enter. And then while we're still in edit pose, we can position this axe in his hand wherever we want it to be. I'm going to try around about there, and I'm just going to switch the sprite over, see how the hand matches up there. Not too bad. I think it's pretty close, so we'll be right. Just note that because this isn't the default prop for this character, as soon as I get out of the edit pose thing, this prop will revert back to the original prop here. I'll show you. You see that's gone straight back to the original prop. Doesn't matter that it's doing that, it's just the only reason I looked at that was to see if the wrist lined up when this character is actually holding his axe. At this point we can get out of edit pose, but we want to make sure that this axe is on the right layer. Make sure we've got the character selected and preview. You'll see if I start moving his arms around, axe is going in front of his head. what we don't want. Need to select the axe again, go to the layer menu. The axe is right on the top. I want it to be right down here, just in front of this arm here. So we're just going to do that. Grab the axe, drag it down, and let it go there. But now you'll see if I preview the character and start moving the arm around, now it goes behind his head like we want. So that's the axe attached to the character. Get out of the composer. He's got his axe, and I'm not going to change the sprite on the hand just yet because adding the motion clip will reset that sprite, so we'll wait till we've got his throwing action in. And the throwing action that I use is one that comes in the free resource pack. So we'll go into free resources and search for throw. This free resource pack comes up indicating it's got some throw motion clips in it, so just open that up. Here we've got a throw and we've got a run and throw. I'm going to use just the throw motion, so we'll select George here, double click that motion, and George has got bone hands, whereas this motion is for sprite hands. So this warning is just telling us that sprite hand data in here won't control my bone hands, but that's okay. So click OK. And you'll notice that action was pretty exaggerated, so if I play it, he's really exaggerated. I don't want that. It's got a full form deformation on it that's exaggerating him. So to fix that, we go into the timeline, click on the FFD track for George, and you'll see we've got this FFD clip here. I could delete that altogether, but I want some FFD on it just to make it look a little more interesting than without. But the other thing I can do is right click on that and do this FFD clip intensity here, and you'll see we've got this adjustment slider here. If we go to the left, it's going to be less exaggerated, and if we go to the right, it's going to be more exaggerated. So I want it to be less, so we can slide it down. And I find these FFD clips actually look pretty good if you sort of tone them down to around the 20-25 mark. They don't look so exaggerated that they look silly, but they look exaggerated enough just to get those sort of nice stretchy feelings that they add to the character. You can see that's not as exaggerated there. Could probably go a little bit more if I wanted to, and it would still look okay. That's that. It's all you need to do to tone down the FFD intensity, or if you don't want it, you can just select this clip and delete it out of the timeline altogether. Turn that off. Now that we've got his throwing motion going, we can change the sprite on my act. I'm going to select the act, open up the sprite editor and change this to his holding position. But you'll notice if I go in close on here, we'll get off the camera and we'll just zoom in on his hand so you can see this better. You'll see I've changed the sprite, but his other hand is still there. To fix that, we select the character, go into the sprite menu for the hands, and we'll just select his right hand, and we can either turn down the opacity like so, or you can just switch to an empty sprite like so, which is what I'm going to do. You'll see now when he moves his hand, he looks like he's holding onto this axe. The next thing we want to do is position the axe that he's going to throw, because this axe is part of the character and it's attached to his hand. It's always going to be affected by the movement of his hand. So we need a separate axe prop for when he lets go of the actual axe throwing it. So what we're going to do is move the character to the point where he actually throws it. I would say is that point. And go close up so we can see what's happening here. We want to line this axe up with where that particular axe is currently positioned. And you'll see a path is being generated here, but we don't need to worry about that for the moment. We just want to put this axe in roughly the same position at that point in time. Before we get out of this, we just want to right click on that and go remove object animation so that we get rid of that path. You can see now that axe is in position, ready to be thrown. Now the next thing I want to do is animate this prop axe spinning. Now I didn't have to do that at this particular time. I could have done it at the start before we even did anything. I'm just trying to follow sort of a sequence here so that you can follow along. What I'm going to do is turn off George turn him off for the moment. Select the axe so that his movement isn't distracting, and we'll focus in on the axe and what we're going to be doing here. And all I'm going to do is animate this axe spinning 360 degrees in the air. So to do that, select the axe. I'm on the first frame at the moment. We're going to open up the prop key editor because you have to do this particular part using the prop key editor. You can't use the transform track here because we're going to be using collect clip, and collect clip won't collect up this transform track, but it will collect up the motion track, which is where the prop key editor stores all its keyframes. So prop key editor open, and all we're going to do is we've got our initial key where it is there, and you'll see this axe is going to pivot around this point. Right, so now we're going to just make this rotate 360 around this pivot point, and I'm going to keep the keyframes relatively close together because it's easy enough to slow down the frames, but when you want to speed them up, there's only so much you can do before the clip won't let you speed it up anymore. So I'm going to keep them relatively close, and I'm just going to spin it 45 degrees at a time. So we'll move to, what is it, frame 5, and rather than just randomly turning it on screen, I'm going to use the rotate around the x-axis box here, and it's going to be going anti-clockwise, so we need to go backwards, and that wants to be 315, I believe. And then we want to move to the next frame, another 5 frames, and we'll keep going to 270. Another 5 frames, and might be 215, is it? Another 5 frames, go down to 180, another 5 frames, it's about 135. I'm going to go 90, another 5 frames, and of course 45, a bit far. And finally we want to get back to 0 degrees. There we go, so you see now the axe is spinning around. The next thing we want to do, you'll notice down here all of that is happening in the transform track here. You'll see the actual name is George Weapons Axe _T for transform. Now that we've done that, we can get out of the prop key editor and go collect clip, and then we just want to select all those frames that we just made and right click in the collect clip track, and I'm going to add them to the action menu. We're going to call it axe spinning forward, and I'm also going to export it out just in case I make any kind of mistake and accidentally delete it out of the action menu. So call it axe spinning forward. You can see it's in the action menu here, axe spinning forward just there. The next thing we can do is just remove object animation because we don't need those frames anymore, and we'll go back to full screen, and we'll bring George back into the picture so that we know where to add the motion clip for the axe. So we want to bring this forward to just when he's throwing it. That's about where he throws the axe. You'll see that with all our working and stuff, we've sort of become unaligned from that. So we're going to spin the axe back and line it up like so. And then we're going to right click and add our axe spinning forward animation. It doesn't really matter that the axe is doing some weird things in this part of the animation, just so long as it's doing what we want on the motion clip that we just added, because in this part of the animation this particular axe is going to be invisible. What we will do is at the start we've got the axe selected, and we're just going to turn it off, and we'll see George go to throw his axe, and at this point where he actually does throw the axe, we want to turn the axe back on, and the axe currently isn't lined up, so we'll fix that and just put it back in line like so, and he follows through and the axe starts spinning around. Now obviously once he's at this point, we don't want the prop that's in his hand anymore because we've got the axe here, so we need to select the axe that's in his hand and do in the scene menu, and we just want to turn that off, and you'll see there now he no longer has a hand. So we've got to turn his original sprite hand back on. Open, make sure George is selected. Open up the sprite menu, select his right hand, and just bring his hand back like so. And you'll notice his hand is in front of the axe, but this whole movement's going to happen so quickly, no one's really going to notice that anyway. Now, something that I notice before we move on is you'll see if I go backwards here, George is missing his whole hand with the axe in it before he throws it, and that appears to have happened when I made the weapon in his hand invisible. It's invisible at this point, and a keyframe has been made here, but there's no keyframe at the start of this track, so it's just taken the whole thing as being invisible. If this happens to you when you're doing this as well, that's an easy fix. Just go back to the start of the track and turn the axe back on. We'll turn the item back on. You'll see now we've got this line that indicates this thing's visible until it gets to this frame, and then it will be invisible and we'll be good to go. So see, the axe is back, then the axe has gone out of his hand again. So if you encounter that problem, that's all you need to do to fix it. So the next stage is getting this other axe to move along a path. We'll get our spinning axe, and we could just use this transform track here. You'll see it's got a keyframe there, and we could just move it along wherever we want it to go, click and drag, and that would work perfectly fine. But instead of doing that, we're going to use the path function. So I'm going to undo that and going to create a path. So we'll hit the create path tool, and you'll see the cursor changes and we've got this little spot. Just have to click once where we want the path to start from, pretty much there, and you'll see now this extends out and we can click where we want the path to end. I believe if you hold the shift key down, it will stick this and keep it in a completely straight line, and I want it to end roughly about there, so we'll click. And we could keep going and adding more keyframes, because that's what we're doing. Each of these white points is a keyframe. I only need those two, so I'm going to hit the escape button, and that gives us our path. And you see the path on this end, and if I click this end, we'll get these arrows, and that allows you to change the path to anywhere you want on the y-axis, and the red one will do it on the x-axis. And we've got this little red mark here. If I move that, you can see I can curve the path, and this is why you would want to use the path tool rather than the transform track, because it makes it very easy to make adjustments to your path, much easier than using the transform track. You can even adjust this in the z-axis or z-axis, and you can do that by going onto the 3D camera screen, or you can just adjust the z-axis here. Now that we've got our path, you need to attach our axe to it. So we're going to select George's axe here, make sure that's the one we've got. We're going to right click on it, and you'll see in here we've got path and pick path. So we want to attach our axe to the path we've just made, so we'll select that. And you'll see the cursor changes to a circle with a line through it, indicating that we're not over a path. And you'll see as soon as I go over my path, selection box curves around it and the cursor changes. Just click on it once. Now our axe is part of that path, and you'll notice the axe itself has moved down to this point, and if we move it around, you'll see all sorts of weird things happening. So the next thing we want to do is make sure we're on the frame where George throws this, and we want to open up the path properties down here, and you'll see we've got this progression slider here. So at this point we don't want the axe this far down the path, we want it to be at the beginning. So you'll see if I slide this, the axe moves along back to the beginning like so. And you'll see now if I move the timeline, it's as if the path is not doing anything, it's just the axe is just remaining at the start like it was before. So we want to now make the axe go to the end of that path. I want my animation to finish about there, and I want my axe to be at the end. So we just move this progression slider, and you'll see the axe is now at the end. And when I move the playhead, see the axe move, and it's rotating as it moves with the clip. If we were to play that whole thing on a loop now, this is what we've got. You can see that's a little slow, and maybe the axe could be spinning a bit more. So now that we've got this path set up, all of these things are pretty easy to fix. So I'll get out of the path. Okay, so now that we've got that path set up, make sure you've got the correct prop selected, and you've got the one that you've attached to the path, you'll see at this point that axe is following the path, and we're good to go. So if I play that, we've pretty much demonstrated making an animated prop follow along a path, but I'm going to show you why we're doing this path instead of using the transform path. And the reason is this is much easier to do edits to. You can see if I wanted my axe to spin a lot faster, I could use the speed function here and shrink my clip down to as far as it'll go. You'll see that spins quite fast, but then it stops and just goes in a straight line. So now we can apply the loop function and stretch it out with loops. You'll see now we've got an axe that's spinning around. So if we play that, it's spinning a lot faster, and physics look a bit weird because of where the pivot point is on my axe, but just for the sake of this demonstration I'm not going to be too concerned about that. But on top of that, we can edit our path by going into path properties, and you'll see now I can do things like change this loop here. You'll see it's as easy as that. Change how the axis direction, or if I wanted to, I could even select this point and give it a really weird direction. Or I could undo that, and I can even add in points on a path. And do something ridiculous like this. And you'll see just how easy it is to mess around with the path like this, whereas your transform path under the transform button can be quite clunky to move around and make changes to, because you have to try and multi-select keyframes and copy and paste and all sorts of things. So I'm going to undo that, get rid of my extra keyframe, and I think I quite like that with a little bit of a bend in. I think it helped make the physics look a little less weird. And if you want to change some of the properties of the actual prop that it's attached to, you have to remember to select the prop and not the path. You only select the path if you want to change the actual trajectory of the path. If you want to change what the weapon does along the path, you select the weapon, and we'll bring it back into view so we can see it. And now when we click properties, we'll get a different window that gives us all these things that we can do with the weapon itself. And we can even do things like change the scale of the axe down here if we wanted it to come forward or look or get bigger. You could actually have done the rotation that we're doing on here using the rotate box here, but you would have had to have done it all the way along the path, whereas we did it with a motion clip, and we can change our number of rotations down here at any time, whereas if you did it up here it would become clunky again and a bit like using the transform path. Now you can offset the act or the prop from this path, it doesn't have to travel along it, by using these coordinates here, but we're not going to do that for this one. You can see down in the timeline you've got path progress here. You can actually apply transition curves to that like you can with anything else, a lot of other things in the timeline. You can see this is the progress with the axe at the end of the path, and I can do things like accelerate. You'll see if you look at these dots along the lines, that's showing the progression along the path. You'll see the dots are a lot closer at the start and they're getting further apart. Decelerate. Anyway, I think I'm going to leave that on linear, so make sure my end key is selected and put it back to linear. And we'll drop that out, and I'm just going to hide the path and hit the play. A little bit hard to see that that's spinning, so maybe we'll go in and select the axe, and maybe we'll reduce the number of rotations to 2, but we'll stretch that out to the end. and try playing that. It's better. You can see it spin better. So there you go. I hope you found that demonstration useful on how to animate a prop and then make the animated prop move along a path. I hope you could see the benefits of using the path tool rather than using the transform track of the prop itself. And hopefully I made the whole process just a little bit clearer. So that's it for this video. Till the next one. Bye for now.